Yeah. Damn it, you're frozen again. It could. We'll see. All right, there, now you're back. I think it's just internet. So if it's coming back, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn off all my internet stuff here. My phone, just if that'll even help. I don't know.
No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. We can hear you though. Everyone's asking. Paulo is not in Orlando. Paulo is actually in Chicago. That's why a little further away. Yep. All right, but let's take everybody from the beginning because like you've told me the story years ago, but I think everyone else doesn't know the story. When and why did you pick up an instrument and start playing in a band, or decide you want to play in a band?
I mean, I guess like everyone's story in the band's kind of similar. We all, pretty much played the same first songs at our live shows. What was it, like Self-Esteem by Offspring, From the Bell Tolls, Damn It, Blink-182. That was sort of the era, I guess, our band, or we all started playing in bands. And I wanted to play a thing called the Italian Festival at my school in South Florida. We were going to play like the live show. They let the students do like one or two things like when it first opened when no one was there, so they didn't like embarrass the school by people playing stuff. But that's what we did. We played that, and that was kind of what made me want to start just kind of playing with friends. And then I was the only one that got serious with it. Everyone else sort of kind of burnt out after a few months.
Yeah, it's like it seems like all of us did Self-Esteem and Damn It first. And then
I mean, that's like the popular stuff. I mean, everything on MTV at that point was like Metallica being the only metal band getting any mainstream appreciation at that point, or were the only ones like able to get on to MTV. And then you had like all the pop punk kind of thing kind of peaking at that point. I mean, Blink-182 is probably the biggest band in the world at that point. They're essentially a boy band for teen boys.
Yeah. It reminded me when you're telling me this story. I don't think I ever told you this story, but once my geography teacher, who hated me for some reason because I wore like band shirts, but she would let us turn on MTV every once in a while, and she'd turn it on, and they're like, "And this next video is from a band called Metallica," and I got super excited. I was like, "Oh my god, now everyone gets to see what I'm talking about."
Yeah.
Teacher was like, "Oh, that's that band you're always wearing the shirts," and they play "I Disappear."
Oh my god. Yeah, that was definitely that's not what you want to show people when the stuff first comes on.
Yeah, I was like, she's like, "Oh, this is your favorite band, right?" And everyone's
That's
like,
it.
"Oh, they're looking at me." I'm like,
Yeah, that was a rough era. I mean, we kind of got into Metallica in that sort of like the end of like the cool phase, and in that sort of awkward, like some kind of monster era, which like, they obviously is still were my favorite band, but there was some like really cringy stuff. But, I feel like kind of came in, weathered the storm as they
Yeah,
went through their weird stuff and then kind of came
definitely.
out the other end.
Definitely. I wish they would have done something like No Leaf Clover as a single instead at that
Yeah.
time. I thought
Yeah,
that like a
that would
real
have been
band
way
thing would have been
better.
a really cool move. I'm not saying that's like the worst song ever, but I remember it was just like they're looking at me like, "Huh, you're talking
That's
about this heavy stuff."
definitely Yeah, that's definitely like, I don't know. I don't even know if they played that live. Like that's like a real deep cut. But I mean, I guess if Mission Impossible wants you to be, if Tom Cruise wants you in their movie, then you got to do it.
Yep. So tell me about Metal Mulisha. Did you
Hmm.
start it? Did the band exist before? How did that come into origination?
Oh, dogs are barking. I'm trying to think. I definitely, it kind of came out of just like jamming with different random people. Like the Italian festival led to like playing with other people in different bands, like bands that didn't even have names. They were just kind of like people that would play this like circuit of Catholic school festivals that would happen throughout the year. And we'd play like all the covers. I feel like playing with, cause Nick was at the same school I went to, St. Coleman's. And, we were kind of playing in a lot of those bands, and we just sort of started doing our own stuff, and we would jam. And then found a guy named Chris Reiser, was the dude that played guitar pretty much like for about 4 or 5 years of that. That was kind of the core of Metal Militia. And we just sort of jammed, and we had some dudes come in and out like on different, rhythm guitar and stuff like that. Nick left at one point, and then we got another dude named Nick to come in. And that was really it. It was just kind of playing a lot of gigs. I mean, sort of mirroring what Trivium was doing at the same time, just at a different part of Florida.
Was that the mustachioed guy, the guitar player?
Yeah, yeah. I've talked to him since then. I mean, I feel I'm trying to think the last time I talked to him. It's been a bit, but I don't think he plays bands and stuff, but he still jams and does stuff. But he was actually a really good guitar player. So we came up with some cool stuff. And we were definitely kind of like, I don't know, it was sort of lonely playing like thrash and stuff like that at that point because everything was new metal. Everyone was
Hmm.
wearing like Jinkos and shit. And
Yep.
we'd like go play and it was like really it's kind of funny, thinking back on it. Like everyone probably like, wow, these losers suck. They're playing thrash and stuff. And then, a couple years later, tables turned and then all those same bands were like trying to get like, they were trying to get size appropriate clothes and trying to play metalcore and stuff. And, they missed the boat, a lot of them.
Yeah, I remember when I joined Trivium, I was like 12, 13. You're what, 11, 12 when you joined Metal Militia, started Metal Militia?
It's probably about 12 or 13.
12, 13.
I
Okay,
think.
so it's the exact
Yeah.
same time. That's crazy. Because I remember when we started, it was all like these new metal bands, and then as soon as I got in Trivium, everyone was going into like post-hardcore screamo or
Yeah.
indie rock. I
Yeah,
remember
we
played,
missed that.
yeah,
all
we
that.
played. Orlando was just very much so like a screamo place. I remember we played our second Battle of the Bands, and I think we were the last
Yeah.
band on. I don't think I told you this either, but I remember the whole crowd in the Lake Brantley High School auditorium was still standing and cheering, and it was like when like we've dubbed the term kind of like irony core, like dudes that are
Yeah.
like we both, I like metalcore, I like hardcore, but then there's
Yeah.
like this other subset of these dudes that like everything sucks, like everything's a
Yeah,
joke. They're out there
yeah.
like can we get all the metal kids to sit down now? And they like started sitting down, and I got out from behind the backdrop, and I told them to stand back. I was like, get up, and they all got up. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, South Florida was like Poison the Well was the big band of the time.
Yep.
And I missed that scene by like a few years
Yeah.
because like there was a lot of stuff that came out of that. I mean, it's kind of, I don't even know. That's
Yeah, I think
sort of
South
like
Florida
that
also
was sort
had
of the
like
birth.
Evergreen Terrace and
Yeah.
stuff, bands like
And
that.
then you had that band Into the Moat was another one that came out of there.
Yep.
Remembering Never.
That
That's
was a
kind of
very
like
good band.
those are the bands that started. I feel like that's like the whole deathcore sound came from that,
Hmm.
Poison the Well and all that. It's a little rougher sounding, but like if that stuff had good production, like that would have been the same shit pretty much.
Yeah, I was talking about Poison the Well to Merle the other day, Merle from Metal Hammer, and we were talking about how they're so underrated now because like
Yeah.
I was referencing a story of like how metal kids, they generally know the roots. Like you and I, we know the roots. We know where things come from. We look up Iron Maiden. We look up things like where roots of everything come from. But when we meet like newer kids who are into modern metalcore, they don't usually know the roots of even like 5 to 7 years back. So I was referencing a story. I was talking to someone that worked, one of our crew guys, and he didn't know who Poison the Well was. Didn't know like anything past like '05. And I was like, man, Terror from the Red and Opposite December. That's where it really came from. But I guess I didn't get into that stuff until 2003 myself, so it was always pretty late.
Yeah, I think they had like broken up by the point that I even got into like playing shows. There was a club in South Florida called, if I'm remembering correctly, it was called like Club Q. It was like a billiards club where all the like hardcore shows would happen. And I don't know, I just kind of feel like when Metal Militia started playing, one, we didn't really fit into any of the scenes really well because there was new metal kind of still happening, and there was like the post-hardcore stuff happening. And then all the clubs were kind of like territorial. I feel like Club Q was like is like the hardcore scene. So that was kind of like dying out. That was like the first wave dying out. Like Poison the Well, I don't even know how many records they did at that point, but they had a few, like their bigger ones were out and they were kind of like getting popular. And I don't know, it was like hard to kind of find a good fit there. And that's like, we just kind of played everything, which is, I guess you could say Trivium's done the same with touring. It was you just kind of tour with anyone and try anything. And that was
Yeah.
kind of the way to get shows. And, it was definitely, you play a lot of weird shows doing that, but I guess it kind of gets you ready to just deal with any sort of crowd. Cause I mean, definitely played, played at McDonald's. We played all types. I feel like we played a lot of weird festivals. We played at this, it was like, what the hell was it? It was like a marathon in Miami. That's where I met OJ Simpson on the street. Was playing this weird. It wasn't even a show. We were just like playing on the side of the road as people ran by, and he like happened to just walk right by us, and I met him. So
Crazy.
I mean, you get into weird stuff doing stuff like that, but it was good practice. I mean, better to play a show than not.
Yeah.
You really at that point, beggars can't be choosers with like local bands because like promoters don't really give a shit. They don't want you to play there unless you can draw a crowd. And
Yeah.
it took a while to even play like the Culture Room.
Yeah, damn. Yeah, for us it was like the Fairbanks Inn was like the place we always played, and then the Lost and Found, which both are done. But I remember Fairbanks Inn was like where, like, I think Corey and I saw Pessimist there, and there were a couple others. I think that's where we also played that Chuck Benefit. Do you think you would ever put out some of that old Metal Militia stuff? That last EP you did was amazing.
I feel like it's like the last one, the full record. I feel like you can find that one, like because it was like on an indie label, but like I don't even know if they probably don't print it anymore. But like there's definitely stuff out there, and there's stuff on YouTube. I mean, if people have the CDs, just put it up there. I mean,
that last one was awesome, man.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff on it. I mean, it's definitely like, it's kind of funny because like you got a lot of like the retro thrash stuff, and we were like, I would say more so, like I really didn't know too much about the melodic death metal until later. Like at the end of Metal Militia, I definitely discovered more of like In Flames and Soil Work. But I feel like that sort of sound didn't really seep into the Metal Militia stuff because at that point, we'd been a band so long. We kind of had the songs we were playing. We didn't even get back into the studio. So I feel like that influence never really influenced Metal Militia as much as like the thrash stuff did. So like hearing it now, I'm like, it's definitely like the earlier, like what I was listening to, Slayer, Death, of course, Metallica, Megadeth, all those kind of things, Sepultura. And it was definitely like just this sort of outside the box thing going on in South Florida, because there was really nothing like that. There was like a couple random bands that were sort of like holdovers from like, how the local scene kind of has their like their like legacy bands. I feel like this band Premonition in Fort Lauderdale, those dudes, like they played a long time. I mean, they probably went back the whole way to the 80s almost. And I know in Orlando there's a couple of those.
Iron Cross, they were on since the 70s.
Yeah. Like it's kind of that'd be just an interesting thing for documentary, just because like I feel like every city kind of had that. I don't even know if that's like a thing anymore, but like a lot of bands like went
local
around,
legends that were like unsigned.
Yeah, and which is cool because like I got in with those dudes, and like they helped me get on a lot of the shows, and they're probably in a weird way the closest thing to like what we were doing, and they kind of championed us at the local level, which is getting something like that is really gonna be something you need.
Yeah, I think if that Metal Militia stuff came out, like that last EP you guys did came out now, it's like super current with a lot of like what the thrash bands are doing right now. Like the young new thrash bands are like hardcore kids playing really cool thrash. I love that last one. The last one was like super melodic. And that one, the Final Descent riff actually ends up becoming To the Rats.
Yeah, and that's kind of that's one of the connections to Trivium, because like we did that with Sukov. He was sort of one of the, wasn't the first time we met because we played the show in Daytona together, and that's when Trivium was still a 3-piece.
Yep, Club Fuel.
Yeah, but doing that demo, like I met Sukov up at was it Classic Cases, and that's
I forgot about that place. Holy cow.
we did a show, because we did a show in like, I don't know if it was before or after. We did a show at Classic Cases. I think it was like Rising Up Angry, the dudes that own that stuff. We did it at their thing. I met Jason, immediately hit it off with this like wild, weird dude. Went to Audio Hammer the next day. Drove over there. I was with my mom at the time. We drove over. He like showed us, I think he showed us Ember to Inferno before it came out, maybe. And, just kind of showed us everything there. And then we ended up doing the demos, the kind of like final Metal Militia demos that, that pretty much was like the last thing I ever did with like the last version of that band, which is kind of like a completely different thing almost at that point. And then we played like a house show in, I think it was close to Melbourne or something on the way back. It was really weird, but yeah, that was kind of the real connection to Trivium, because at that point it was like we had met you, Daytona, and then I don't know if one of the last shows was that Sun and Steel festival that was like total disaster in Tampa.
That Pinellas Park? That one?
Yeah, that was
I remember that one.
Jack Koshik or something. He's the dude that did the Milwaukee Metal Fest.
I think Testament headlined the day that you and I played.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a good bill. It was like cool bands, but it was like we were in a conference center, and like I don't know, it was in Tampa. It was really weird. We played like the opening night show at like a club somewhere. I feel like MOD played. I met Billy Milano there. It was kind of a weird vibe, but that was like one of the last shows we like played on the same thing. And Corey was in the band at that point, and I think you guys were about to go out on tour. So pretty much it was like we did the Daytona show like in 2003 or something, 2002. I met Jason, did those demos, and then we did the Sun and Steel Festival in Tampa, and then like maybe I don't know, 3 months later, I think I joined.
Yeah, it was like our third tour. Yeah, for everyone. So Paolo was the front man of Metal Mulisha. He was the lead singer and bass player, 3-piece. We were also 3-piece. He was managed by one of his parents, and I was managed by one of my parents. So it's like a pretty cool story that we ended up there. And we did our first tour. It was the first tour was supporting God Forbid and Scars of Tomorrow. The second tour was supporting Iced Earth and Beyond the Embrace. And then the third one was Machine Head, Chimera, Trivium. And at that point, people always talk about like, I think a lot of people have a misperception that if anybody ever tours with you, they are in your band. And I think that some people don't realize that, because before that I was originally just the lead guitar player. There's a different singer. We had a different drummer fill in like once or twice. But by this tour, the tour before Paolo, we just had the bass player Monstrosity playing with us for the one tour. And then we were looking for someone. And actually my dad was the one that recommended, he's like, oh, you guys remember Metal Mulisha? We should call Paolo up. So Paolo came out and did this tour. We all lived in the Chevy conversion van. Dude, that thing, that sucked.
Death trap.
I wish we would have done a passenger van like every other band in the world does, but for some reason, I think my dad didn't know.
Yeah, that was I mean, it was okay for like when we had like no crew, but once we had crew, it was kind of like,
oh my gosh,
bad. And then when we had the thing where we took out the back seats and just put those things down. That was very dangerous. That was like,
yeah.
I mean,
we only
that's
had
like,
the driver's seat and the passenger seat, and the rest was just fold
dangerous.
out like a
That's
cushion
like
thing. We all laid like
that could have been a
it was
disaster.
like 8 of us. It was 8 of us laying back there. I remember once we got pulled over by the cops. They the state patrol guy opens up the door and just looks in there. He's like, he closed it and left.
Yeah, that was very illegal.
Yeah. Oh, that was terrible. But so we did the Road Rage tour with Machine Head, Chimera, Trivium opening. I'll never forget that day in Tempe, Arizona. We go on playing at the Marquee Theater, which it used to fit like 1,000 then. I think it's at like 1,600 now.
Yeah.
But there was 17 people there during our set? 17, 1-7.
I mean, total probably was like 30 by the time Machine
the end
Head
of the
played.
night.
But that was a very bad turnout for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, because like most of the turnouts on that one were pretty good. So I don't really know what happened there. But
that was strange.
Yeah, that was bad. But we played like it was like
I remember saying that to Rob.
Show.
Yeah. We all said to Rob that
they
night.
were all like watching us. Like,
we were pretending like it was a sold out arena.
I think we probably made that show, the vibe, a lot cooler because I'm sure. I mean, I didn't give a shit because like we weren't the headliners, so like wasn't on us or anything. So we were just having a good time. But I'm sure it made everyone's day a little better. Just go out there and have fun. And I think Arizona to this day is like one of our best markets. I mean, not everyone was there, but I feel like every time we go back,
we do ask, and it's usually at least 10 people raise their hand.
And that's most of the crowd that was there, so they stuck with us. So we have a good record for keeping fans. Like a lot of people would have saw that and could have been like, "Wow, this sucks. This band sucks."
I remember that tour. I think better than most tours. But so it was the last show in California, and then from stage, we're like, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, Paolo is filling in for our band. Now I want to invite him into the band Trivium. Yay. And then
it was at Anaheim at the House of Blues.
Yep. That was it. Oh man. I also, you just reminded me too, when we played Trees in Dallas on that run, I remember because we didn't get per diems those days. Back in those days, we lived in a van. We like never really ate. I remember when Machine Head invited us up to have drinks on their bus. I was so hungry, and like fans brought these enchiladas on their bus, and they're like all talking about shots, and I was just looking at that food. And I hadn't eaten all day, and I just wanted to eat so badly. Man, what a crazy difference of times. And now we're like, all right, let's go eat this awesome food. Yeah,
great
hogs. Yeah, Ashley's like, I need to chill out. I don't know what your guys' diet's been like, but I guess I'm a bad example. Yeah,
no, we've been good. We've been like, we've been ordering. It's kind of one of those things of like, do you want to order and make someone else go get it? But I'm like, I guess going to the store, if 2 of us go, that's worse than one person being there. So we've just been ordering enough for like, I don't know, maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks, and just making our own food and staying in.
Yeah,
That's kind of been it. Hopefully
we've
it's
been
going to pay off and not,
yeah.
lead to a lot of weight gain.
Yeah, I've been like, Ashley keeps sending me these memes of people saying like, "Oh yeah, I was going to work on getting fit during this quarantine, but I have to support my favorite local restaurants." And so I've been supporting
I
pretty
want to
hard
definitely.
lately.
I definitely would like to
AKA
There's
eating a
like
lot
a
of
really good
carbohydrates.
ramen. Yeah, a lot of good ramen spots around. Like we're right
Yeah,
next
man.
to really good ones. So I think one day we're gonna do it. But I've been trying to do like I'll do the big cheat meal like every other week because we've been doing that insanity workout, and that's been
Man,
our
you guys are being good. I have
yeah.
like one healthy meal a week, and the rest is
Yeah, I don't know.
it's
I'm
eating
just
like a
like I don't
hog.
know how long this is gonna go on. So I'm like,
Yeah,
I guess it's got to be. It also kind of makes the day a little more structured, so we're not just like, she's been playing. My girlfriend's been playing Animal Crossing. That's like the new
she should be
hit
streaming
game.
that.
Yeah, and I don't want to just be on fucking internet yelling at people all day. So I gotta like split it up and do something healthy.
You definitely do that better than anyone else, but you already know that. You already know that.
Yeah,
Everyone
I
in
mean
here
it just
knows it.
yeah, I mean that's just an extension of my high school years. I just was able to transfer it to online. I
Yep.
could just bully people on there. It's privet.
If you don't mind, can you tell the story about the lunchroom? As I always picture that one in my head. That one's
Oh
so
yeah,
good.
that's the classic.
You're all not ready. You're not ready, everybody.
Okay, well, it starts in PE class, and I broke my finger that day. It wasn't bad where like you could tell, but I definitely did. The football hit like right on the I don't know, it was my middle finger or whatever, but it hit on the tip like and like crunched it in. So I felt like
Oof.
shit that day. Then I asked the teacher in the next period. I'm like, hey, I'm hurt. I need to go to the office, and I don't know. They were being like dickheads. I don't know why. They didn't like me anyway, so they didn't believe me. So I think I just like walked out essentially, and got sent to the office. They gave me, I don't know, like a discipline report or whatever, detention, even though I was hurt. And then I like came back, and it was like the lunch period, and me and one of my friends, we were like screwing around on the lunch line, just we're like in, I don't know, sixth grade, maybe seventh. I'm not even sure. And the lunch lady, Mrs. Alberto or Miss Alberto, she had like a microphone, and there was a PA system in the hall. And I mean, she was already really loud, like that sort of like, New York Italian loud as fuck voice. And uh just always like yelling on the intercom at people. And she like yelled at me, and she's like, I can't remember. It was just like she kicked me out of line, and then I was so pissed because I have a broken finger and everyone's being an asshole to me. And I like made this like like I made it like seem like I was gonna like throw the chair at the window or something. And she's like, you gotta go to the office or whatever. So I'm like walking through the middle of the cafeteria, like from the table, and I'm just like, fuck this. And I kick over all the trash cans, and like everyone in the crowd or in the fucking the hall is just screaming, like just yelling, like egging me on, like just loving this shit. And like, I mean, she just keeps yelling at me. I just kick over all the trash. And then I don't know I think it was this big lunch dude named Adolf, who's a big piece of shit. I flicked him off right to his face. It was so good. It was the most cathartic thing I've ever done. And then as I'm walking down like because it was like the way like schools are in like South Florida, at least the Catholic schools, a lot of them are like outdoors, but like there's like halls, but like they're outside, and like there's all these windows. So I'm like walking to the office, and I just flicking off everyone as I'm walking down. Like it was pretty crazy. It was like some like wrestler shit. And
Man,
it was good though, because like, I mean, I don't know. It was like, yeah, I was being bad, but like everyone that day was being a prick to me at the school, and that's how it usually was. So I gave it back to him.
And I remember when you first told me that story, like I always picture it, like I picture you like standing on top of the cafeteria tables, and there's just like a riot going on around you, like people throwing
No,
garbage and food.
It was loud, and all the friends from school that remember it, they remember it vividly. I feel like a lot of people that I went to school with. Like if I like mention that, like they'll know exactly what I'm talking
That's
about.
amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was
That's
pretty.
why,
It
like,
was pretty epic.
when people like try to get into any stuff with you ever, whether like a public scale or anything,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, it's like Bane. Like
Yeah.
you were born in that. Like
Yeah.
they won't win. So anytime I see somebody start, like, man, they're done. They're dead.
Well, and like we're the internet like 1.0 generation, being shit talkers and stuff like that on the
And then you
internet.
get banned from
So,
some like chat rooms and AOL.
oh
I
yeah,
remember
I
you're
got
telling
banned
me.
on AOL like twice. Just being a you can imagine what well, look at like young kids now on the internet.
Yeah, on
Everyone's like
game chats.
everyone's
Yeah.
shocked by that. I'm like, it's still like you should be called out for that. Like it's bad behavior, but like I'm not surprised. You put like young kids online able to like say shit whatever they want. Of course they're going to say some bad stuff. And I did in those chat rooms because like back in AOL, like you could go into like different theme chats and I would just go into different stuff and just start shit. But they shut down the account and AOL sent my mom the chats.
Oh my
So like
God.
she could read it. Well, I'm like, that's like pretty brutal.
That is
And
amazing. I wish we could do that now for people. Like send
that's like the
people's
funny
moms.
thing. That's the funny thing now is everyone like cries that like their speech is being like silenced or whatever. And I'm like, you don't even fucking know. Like it was embarrassing. Like my mom was like, "Oh, what is this you said on?" And she like read it out. It was like I don't know. It's just like total. There's no way around it. They just sent it to my mom because she was the person that paid for the AOL accounts. So my account was on there. So she got access to all that stuff and they sent it to her. And so pretty much like she had to like read that to me. And then I was banned for a little bit and then I got back on. And that was pretty much it. And then I switched to like doing prank calls, which it was harder to
Oh,
trace.
I remember
Yeah.
the days of the van when we'd be doing that.
Yeah.
Holy cow, I forgot
That
about
was
that.
like my prank call years were definitely the same period. It was way easier to call people and like you couldn't be traced as easy as now. Half the shit I did on there, I would go to jail for probably now, for sure. 100%.
Raised in the fires of memery. That's amazing.
Yeah. But now I target like
People that deserve it.
yeah,
Yes.
that's the main thing. It's like you give it to people that are being pricks online and that's good. You don't go out like when you're a teen, you're just kind of like throwing it around everywhere, and you don't think about that stuff. But then
Well, those are the training grounds, though. That was
yeah, and of course, like, being I think like when I was younger and stuff, it was more of like being just being a bastard, but like that's what, young teen boys are. They're bastards and they do
Yeah.
bad shit, The thing is you got to grow up and become a better person. Now the guys that do that shit now that are bastards, that are teens forever, that's a different story. And those are the people I like to give shit to because it's like
Yep.
you're supposed to grow up,
Yep.
You're supposed to
Yeah, and those
tell
guys deserve it
people-
too. That's
Yeah.
what I've always felt. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah. Oh no, I
and
don't fucking. There's no fucking like turn the
Pulling
other cheek to
punches.
those people. Yeah,
yeah,
you
I
gotta
agree.
fucking.
I agree. Yeah, because they're
gotta
usually
give it to
wants to
them.
champion like, well, everyone is
No.
trying to silence stuff. It's like, well, no, you're free to say what you want, but then we're free to say what we want back to you, which is
Yeah,
always
you want to
good.
say you want to say anything, deal with the consequences.
Yep.
Whatever that
Absolutely.
is. I'm fine with that.
Absolutely. So let's go to another. Let's switch gears. You've been writing a ton for Trivium, which is so awesome. I'm basically since the ascendancy, but like as I've been saying in all the interviews, I've been saying to everybody, it's like 75% plus of the lyrics now, melodies. Take us to the In Wave story because that was the one that I feel like really changed
Yeah.
the dynamic of your songwriting in the band.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like I kind of start writing on the Crusade because at the point I joined the band, Ascendancy is pretty much written, and everything that would change at that point was like in the studio, and then I just kind of played my bass parts to it. Crusade, I started writing. I think that one was kind of like the trial by fire of like how we were going to write with more writers in the band. It was kind of a rough start, but like it kind of had to like figure it out. And then by Shogun, we kind of like really realized like jamming was going to be the key. And obviously the results from Crusade to Shogun speak for themselves because we put a lot of time into the jamming part of it, which, that's sort of the linchpin for everything. And then when we got to like In Waves, we had like 7 months of writing because I think Colin was on a project before that and it was kind of like running over time, kept getting pushed back. We were getting pushed back. And then So by the time we got in there, we had written so many songs. We had a lot to choose from, and we jammed a lot. I think that's like, again, the thing that matters the most is we all got in there and we worked all the ideas out together. And I think in the studio with Colin, Carl, and Ginge, the guys that were the producers, they were very, very focused on music. And of course, lyrics and vocals were important, but I think we kind of had to produce a lot of it ourselves, kind of figure out what points, we needed to step in and kind of change stuff. I think of all these yesterdays was kind of one where it was like we hit a brick wall, and I think it was just kind of like, okay, we're gonna write the parts, and we're gonna get it solid. Because I mean, at one point, I think what was the thing they wanted, like the dude, they wanted us to go work with do some vocal
Yeah,
production with
different
someone
different
else.
singer. They wanted me to go to the UK because I totally forgot about that. Yeah, we were stuck. And it was
Yeah,
yesterday's. I did the verse like 30 times, 30
yeah,
different ways, and they just didn't know what to tell me. I was like, guys,
yeah.
I need you to tell me something. I'm blowing my voice out here. And
Yeah,
then
I
that's
think it
that's when you
was.
came up with the idea of what to do because I
Yeah, I
had
think
the
it's just
the
kind of like,
words.
like having the ability to kind of come up with like melody lines and stuff. Definitely, we gotta, between me and you, usually we can figure out some stuff like
Mhm.
that,
Yep. Yeah, it
and
was so weird when they recommended that idea. They're like, "Oh no, let's fly Matt over or
yeah.
fly someone in."
Mhm.
But I mean, I guess to recap too for everybody, we the three of us generally write like start the songs. But Paulo also like on Shogun, Down from the Sky, Throws Perdition, those were started by Paulo. To the Rats Anthem. I think Anthem was you and I. I think you started it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I kind of came with a couple things.
Yeah, a couple of the riffs.
But so before we used to be a little bit more fragmented of like a guy starts it and then it was a definitive person starts and we all finish. But now it's more so like amorphous. But I remember for the song in Waves itself, because we were just coming out of Shogun, Crusade was a vast departure from Ascendancy, and then Shogun really brought everyone back together, and we wanted to do something different. So when you first wrote the demo for In Waves, it was a totally different idea that what you're using it for.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
what was
it
that?
was like a joke idea. It was like I don't know what was
It was
leading to this, but
it
it was
was
like
like a recipe.
no, it took like a video of like Colonel Sanders, some funny thing. I think Nick had sent it to me, like we were just laughing about it. And so I started like writing a song to the thing, and I like chopped up all the like Colonel Sanders lines from this commercial. It was a commercial where he was like fucking it up, and he couldn't do the commercial right. And so it was really funny. So I wrote it to that, and I like wrote this riff to it, and like wrote this melodic part, and I'm like, "Oh, this is like really cool." And I sent it to Nick. I sent the dumb song, of course, and then I sent the actual thing. I'm like, "Hey, we should jam this." And I went over to his place, and we just kind of jammed it for a while. And then we sent like I don't know if we sent what kind of demo, but we sent the demo up to you guys. And that's really how that song started. It was like a total joke song. I think it's like, obviously it was trying to make an actual riff, and that was going to be the joke of it, like this stupid like Colonel Sanders, and there's going to be like these heavy riffs under it, and just lo and behold, come up with a cool riff that I don't think I could have even written a riff like that if I was trying, because it was like very simplistic and like rhythm based. And anytime you start to write stuff like that, you really start to kind of just, I don't know, it starts to sound like whatever. And I think maybe because I wasn't trying is why it worked.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when you showed me that riff, you're like, "Oh yeah, here's this joke thing. I'll show you the lyrics later on." I was like, "This is the coolest thing I've ever heard before." I was like, "I've never heard anything like this before," because we just came out of
Yeah.
the most tech record we've ever had, and then I hear this
Yeah, it was
like
definitely.
one string, two noted thing, and I remember it was instant. The words "In Waves" came to me right away. I was like, "Oh, In Waves, that's the chorus. I'm just gonna scream it right here." It like
Yeah, that
wrote
was
itself.
sometimes that's how those things are. I mean, you kind of have to just like try different shit. And I mean, that was definitely, I couldn't take credit for saying like, oh, I definitely knew what I was doing writing that. That was really just out of the blue, and sometimes that's how it is.
Yeah, those are the best things.
Like sometimes Corey will be like, oh, I was like, sitting on the couch, I was watching Sports Center, and I wrote this riff, like that shit like that happens a lot.
Yep.
And I think it's maybe because you're not in a state where you're like focusing hard,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that just kind of like the subconscious like things you think about in your brain, just are kind of like they're like moving your hands around. You're not even thinking about it, and then you just all of a sudden it clicks, and you're like, oh, there's a riff. That's a cool riff.
Yeah,
And that's
that's the weird
music
that's the
I
weird
gotta
thing for me.
I gotta have
Yeah.
like a riff.
Yeah, like
I
and
can't sit down and like I
I
don't like
can't
to
either.
write a song. I don't like to write a song where it's like, uh, okay, I'm gonna just sit down and write this whole song. Like,
Yeah,
if it's
that doesn't work anymore.
if I'm not feeling it, if like the riff isn't there, I'd rather just like I'll start tomorrow. I need a cool riff, or it's not worth sitting here for 8 hours and piecing this
Yep.
together.
I like that we even do that as a band. Like when everybody's the way we usually do stuff is Corey, Paolo, or myself will start with either an entire song or a collection of riffs or one or two riffs or an idea, generally starting with the big songs. We all bring it in. I remember even the last two records, anytime we've hit a wall, what's great is we kind of like slow down for a second, then we call it. We're like, no, let's move on to another song and let's come back.
Yeah.
And that's usually anytime you make it contrived, that was like the process of the Crusade for me a lot. I was like, no, I'm going to make a, it was my idea. I was like, let's make a record that's the opposite of the previous is response to all the stuff that's involved. But I find that like if I look at our song list, the times that I've done things that wasn't meant for Trivium were the easiest things that were the strangest. I remember Wretchedness I ghost wrote for a band. And then you mentioned, hey, let's use Wretchedness. Let's change it up. Endless, I wrote as a scoring thing for a friend's like personal training business that you're like, hey, let's change that up. It became something incredible. Same thing with even on this record, how two of the riffs from Dead Men are from that Shroud song.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, let's use this. Let's rewrite this. So it's weird because I definitely cannot write things being sat and saying, hey, I want to write this riff.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely takes a little bit of you know, it takes effort. You can't just be like, well, it doesn't sound cool. I'm not going to give it a shot. But I feel like if you're like an hour or two and it's not really working, it's not going to happen. And when we get into the rehearsals, there's got to be an element of like, I don't know, some sort of vibe happening, you know, and
Yeah.
it's hard to say like, well, this is going to work for sure. And you got to know when to step back or know like when a song's not going to work. But I mean, on this record, we never were like, okay, this is getting scrapped. This isn't going to work. Like what the Dead Men say, it took a little extra time. It's just we needed more riffs and needed more time to work on it. And you know, when a song's complex, it's not going to always work overnight. Even though most of the songs I say are like a day and a half, we can get it into like some sort of like shape where it seems like a song. But that one definitely, because we had to use two different demos that were completely like different tempos and stuff and like matched together. It took quite a bit of time, but I mean, that's it. I put a thing online the other day of like every single day that we recorded our rehearsals, and you know, it was like 19 days of recording demos and probably 21, 22 days total of just our pre-production before we even got in with Josh. So there's really no way around it, especially with detailed like songs and metal songs. Like you can't do that shit quick. And that
Mm-mm.
was kind of like the issue of the Crusade. It was like there was just none of that. It was kind of like demos from our whatever we use, the computer or phones, right into the studio. We missed that very crucial period where a song becomes a Trivium song and not like, oh, this is this guy's idea and that guy's idea, and then here's a collection of them on a record. It's not a unified vision. And because like when all of our songs come in, they're not like in the same ballpark always, just because everyone's into different stuff and writes a little differently. But like when you get in that jam room, that's kind of like sending it through the Trivium processing machine and it becomes what it's going to be.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that bands, of course, stand in a room together, the 4, 5, 6 of them, and they make the stuff and finish together, but they really don't. It's almost like once they're signed, and like you've met musicians like that, I'm sure everyone here has seen musicians like that. Basically, once they put a record out, they're like, I'm good. I don't need to practice anymore. When we do a record, I write a couple of demos, I go in the studio. I'm not going to figure out. I was that guy on Crusade. I was like, I have lyrics written. I don't need to try them. I know what I'm going to do, even though I'm going to do something I've never done before. But you really have to be in the room. And like Paolo said, when the four of us are in that room and we're actually preparing these songs as if we're about to play them live before going to the studio.
Yeah.
That's why the record took 16 days of tracking, because we put, like 9 to 12 months of prep work into this stuff. Some of these songs even farther than that. Like, what's the oldest song that you recall writing for this record, for Dead Men?
And I mean, my demos were like a year old on the, like when I looked at the Dropbox the other day.
Was Catastrophist your oldest song? Maybe
that's probably the oldest. Like I wrote when I first came up to Chicago, I didn't have all my recording gear. So I was doing like basic stuff. I was like writing riffs. So I probably started writing a little earlier and I got started a little later than I normally would have, but I probably started about a year ago once we decided like when we were going to like write and record. And then once we started moving, I mean, March was like just after the Grammys, we were like, okay, we're gonna convene in April and start like demoing this stuff. And yeah, I mean, that was kind of at that point, I think everyone had been writing for a few months, so we had a couple ideas, but we knew what we were gonna do again was gonna like split up everything. It was gonna be like, okay, let's do 3 songs this time, and then 3 songs next, 3 songs the next time, and that was kind of the game plan. I think the sin in this sentence was like the template for writing and a way to manage writing while also touring, which, that's a big thing, especially for us. We don't go out for 200 days like we used to, but fitting in writing in between touring is definitely difficult. And, since we're not all in the same area and, it's nice to have a little break and not be doing this every single day,
Hmm.
because I don't think you get good ideas by just like destroying yourself and trying to like overkill. It's like you can't go out and like play a sport every single day and not get burnt out. I think if
Hmm.
you go and if you're doing if it's Trivium stuff every single day, we'd be burnt out. So
Yep.
it's managing that like when is it writing time and when is it touring? And I think by splitting it up like that, we're able to do like a week is not a lot of commitment to do writing. But like when we did in waves, we were like 3 months of like writing and I know by the end of it, we were pretty burnt, but we got a good thing out of it. But it's like that was a lot to put yourself through. And now with everyone's lives and stuff, you don't want to be just in a warehouse every single day,
Yep.
for 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the way we do it. Like, it seems like we all rehearse so much, and I know that it probably looks like I do them like a lot because I'm just broadcasting it, but everybody in this band, like all 4 of us, rehearse so much, and that's why everything
Yeah.
is so quick. Like, I feel like there is that kind of creative time, there's that like mechanical time where you're
Yeah.
keeping everything in shape, and that's what's so important. That I never used to do that until my voice blew out. But you're talking about the process of sin, and what I've been figuring out from this press tour that we've all been doing,
Yeah.
like everybody, all of us in the band has basically been doing hours upon hours of phoners every day with every country for the record. But what I realized, and it's not that I dislike these records, it's just for Silence and Vengeance and Crusade, those 3 records, we stayed in a lane. And like, it made me realize when I was saying it out loud that like Trivium sound is to not be in a lane. Trivium sound is that like 8 records were different.
Yeah.
And these last 2, you never know what we're going to get. And everything is so like, we have everything. But when we decide to go, all right, we're just doing this and there's nothing over here, nothing over here. There's no
Yeah.
screaming because I couldn't do it. It didn't get that fast because us as a band lineup, we couldn't pull off tech or
Yeah.
fast. That is a big thing at Trivium Sound, just allowing everything to be there. And we didn't really have many discussions over the last 2 records of what should or shouldn't be there. I think it's like all 4 of us just knew that we wanted to play anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was also tough too with like, for David and Elvis with production. Like they have a very well, I mean, David obviously he's not like a producer like as his normal thing. I mean, obviously he's very successful at what he does, but like to do production, I feel like that's just such a whole different ball game. And working with Elvis, he had a very set way of doing his stuff. And like we're a band that like has our own way of doing things. And I think it's kind of like one of those things of like, you know, I guess the only way I could describe it is like it's like putting training wheels back on your bike after you know how to ride a bike.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like we didn't need as much of a hands-on approach with our production and writing. And I think it's just one of those things of like now with Josh, he's like a guy that comes in and knows like how to read a band and their process. And I think Josh can go in with a baby band and like really help them write and find their sound. But if he's working with Trivium and Lamb of God, he knows these are bands with like identifiable sounds and, you know, there's like a respect to that. And I think like knowing that while you're also working like helps you as a producer. It's just a different vibe. Like every producer's their own thing. And Shogun was a totally different thing, because I think Nick was like, coming off of he had worked with Rush before he came into Shogun. So it kind of worked in a weird way because I feel like he was like in this prog thing. I kind of almost wonder if we got Nick coming off of like a Foo Fighters record, like would the prog thing have really kind of shown through with his production? But I think it was a real just like chance event that Nick had worked with Rush and he was like in prog mind
Hmm.
and we were coming off the Crusade, and we're writing these like longer songs, but he was like pushing us to do that more. I'm very curious because like that's just like a really random thing that like he would be the guy to push us that way.
I never thought of that before.
Yeah, I do think like him working with Rush actually in a really weird way benefited us with that record because he was like all about that. Like, and everything in his history as a producer was like would not have like
Yeah, it was a little more streamlined. Or
yeah,
like rock,
I think Roadrunner thought he was gonna be coming to the table with
like
more
radio
like
singles or
rock radio stuff,
yeah.
which I think we still had like really catchy, like Down from the Sky was catchy as fuck.
I feel like that song should have been there should have been a
Yeah.
radio edit, and that would have been very successful at radio.
Like that
Just
was catchy.
cut out the middle.
We delivered the catchy stuff. You know, it was really just like he was like all about the like complex things. Which again, like I think if you're a producer and like you know he's written some or he's produced some really great records since then and very different bands. So I think he's definitely one of those guys that kind of just rolls with like whatever the band's thing is. He did some Ghost stuff, did Korn, so all very different than Shogun, but it was definitely a really good timing for that. But now with like Josh, it's like I think if we went in the next record, we were like, hey, we want to kind of do this, like he would definitely be open to what we're doing and kind of know how to work around that. But I think we kind of found like what works for us now. So I don't think we're like gonna throw any surprises on the next record.
Definitely. Yeah, our key, like I said with the press tour, I've been vocalizing it all. We need the kind of producer that comes in as another band member, doesn't come in as a leader. Because to come in as a leader, we're
people.
Yeah, exactly. We're like self-sustaining band that runs the ship itself, which is really cool. Take us through your lyrical process. Like, how do you write lyrics? Like melodies, sound them out, all that stuff.
Well, actually, hold on, I got this. Before the Sin in the Sentence, I was like, hey, I should like learn how to like learn a little bit more of the fundamentals and the technical side of like, writing lyrics. And I'll put the book up here if you can see it.
It's a little frozen. Just hold it up for 1 second. It's been going in and out, but it'll be in a sec.
It's was it Writing Better Lyrics?
Yep, we can see it now.
Yeah, very simple title. I just looked it up on Amazon. I'm like, okay, this looks cool. It's highly rated. And it was just really kind of like I want to learn a little bit more about like how do you rhyme stuff? Like what is a rhyme? And like I ended up learning a lot more about, not just like that rhymes don't have to be perfect. You can kind of like do things a little differently. You can rhyme different parts of words, and that's like more of the technical side of it. But then also, the idea of that a verse works to further a narrative or a story along or whatever you're doing. So like your verse 2 needs to keep pushing things forward as opposed to like just saying the same shit from verse 1 with different words. And that was kind of I don't know, like kind of a more, it kind of seems obvious now, but like a more of an eye-opening thing because like when you're writing lyrics, you're just like, oh, I got to fill up this song with words.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's verse 2 is usually just they're phoning it in.
It's very tough. It's a very tough thing to do. And like 10 songs of that is even, a tough thing. It's not like, I think we scaled back on how many songs we were going to do on this record just so we could really focus in and make every song count and matter. But like, looking back at like Shogun, where we did like almost 15 tracks, 14 of those original, that's a lot of words. And it's like to even get the inspiration for one song is a lot, but 14, you start really just dragging with ideas like what am I going to write about, and you start to write the same stuff, and I never want to be redundant. And it's even hard on a record, on the same record, because you start to say similar things and you don't even realize it because you're just tired and fatigued. I think another thing that really helps for me is writing down ideas on a notepad, whether it's on the piece of paper or if it's on my phone. If I see something cool I like online or see a movie I like or anything, if something inspires me, I just write down what it is, and I might not even put where I got it from. I'll just write the word down. That's how I got like a word like catastrophist, because I would never, where would I encounter that word ever? Maybe a vocabulary book or just seeing it in an article or in a tweet or whatever. And I'll just write it down and I'll save it. And then when it's time to start writing lyrics, I have a whole list of stuff that some of it works, some of it doesn't, but like I have stuff to pull from. And that's like when I'm writing lyrics, like if you have a song and it feels like we need another word or something, there's always something there. It's like you got this stored list of stuff because you're never going to remember everything. And if you just rely on what off the top of your head, you start to go to cliche
Yep.
things or
It's
just
always been, yeah, it
comfort
feels the
zones.
same. Yep.
And, another big rule in that book was like to really try to avoid as best as possible, like cliches, idioms, things that people just say, like common phrases, because it's like, I mean, of course, it's a clever thing, whatever you're saying, and that's why it's become an idiom, but like it's so commonplace. It's like, I don't know, kind of cheapens in a way. And when I hear people say things like that are just common phrases, it's, I don't know, I feel like you could have said it another way, or it just kind of cheapens it to me.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. And that makes me like think like, when I would try to pull from Greek mythology for some things, I guess that was doing exactly what you're saying there, but without realizing it, which is really cool. But I love too, because like on this record, we would find some spots that needed more lyrics. And for the last two
Yeah.
records, you and I, when Josh is like, we need more lyrics here, you and I can just get together and it's
Yeah.
almost, sometimes it's instantaneous. We come up with really great things. Like I'm excited for people to hear the middle of Scattering the Ashes, because that's actually where Paolo's the lead vocal on that part. So it sounds like we've got a guest, but you've been in the band.
Yeah. Well, I think when like if your verses, like if you have a couple verses that are really good and you know what you're singing about, it's not hard to get lyrics. It's just like having a real well-defined idea for a song. So it just doesn't, I don't know, feel like aimless. Like you're
Yeah,
just writing a
definitely.
diary.
Definitely.
I mean, and some singers can probably, and lyricists can definitely do that and pull that off. But I think it's like that would have to be your style and it has to be really worked over and well done. And I guess everyone's got their own vibes with that kind of stuff. And we're a band that writes together lyrics and music. So we kind of had to kind of create this whole new thing of like, every person's input really matters to the whole. And that's not like a common thing with a lot of bands. So, especially with lyrics, like how does three people write a unified song with lyrics and get on the same page? And,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of have our way of doing that now.
Yeah, I think Corey said it best one day. I don't even know if he said it in press or anything. He just said it to us at the practice place. He said, we all speak the same musical language. And
Yeah.
he's totally right. Because like any one of us can play a riff or say a line, the other one can finish it, which is really, really good. That's such a rare thing.
Yeah, it's
Well,
playing all these years, like rehearsing, listening
yeah,
to a lot of the same music, and I mean that's kind of it. It kind of comes over time.
definitely, definitely. Well, I ask this at the end every time. It doesn't have to be of all time. It could just be the thing that comes to mind. What is one of your favorite things you've eaten? It could be all time or just recently.
Oof.
Things, dish, meal, restaurant, country, anything, anything.
Hmm. Hmm. Uh, I mean, I guess to go with the quarantine theme, like the best thing that I've been making like consistently has been blackened mahi mahi.
Ooh, where's the photos of this, man?
I don't.
Insta
Yeah, I
food.
gotta make it. I found like a
Yeah.
good, like simple recipe, and make that every couple nights. And I'm still trying to find the right amount of cayenne pepper because like the amount that it says is kind of too hot, and it like kind of creates this sort of like pepper spray in the room as
Oh
I'm making
yeah,
it.
it
So
absolutely does.
it's very, yeah, that's been the most difficult part. And I like it spicy, but like it's just like kind of like if I do a little less than like it says, it doesn't feel good enough. Then I do what it says, and then I'm like, oh, this is like killing us. We're all like crying eating this. But yeah, I don't know why I got back into mahi mahi. I That was like a thing in high school. They would make like every like Thursday, and it was like the only good shit they had there. So I don't know. Maybe that's just a childhood memory I'm reliving with
That's
this
awesome.
fish.
It's all full circle with
Yeah.
Mrs. Alberto
Yeah.
and
Well, that was high
Adolf.
school. I was good. I was better in high school.
Okay.
So was it?
Amazing. Well, dude, thank you so much for being on here.
Yeah.
I love that we got to get all the funny stuff and then hit your process and everything. But I'll talk to you soon, man. Everybody knows
Yeah.
Paolo. Make sure you're following Paolo on all his socials.
Yeah.
Especially all of them, especially Twitter,
Yes.
especially
That's
Instagram.
where-
Watch him take down a bunch of
Oh
shitheads.
yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you
All right,
very
dude.
much. See
All
y'all
right,
later.
take care, man. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so
All
much, Paolo.
right. Bye.
Later, dude. There he was, ladies and gentlemen. Man, the myth, the legend, Paolo Gregoletto. Man, dude makes me laugh so hard. That cafeteria story. The cafeteria story so much. I love that cafeteria story. That was episode 3 of GLHF. That was good.